Welcome back to the TuckerAllen Virtual Town Hall. I'm your moderator, Scott Trout, and as we do each month, we're joined by the TuckerAllen attorneys to talk about specific topics in estate planning from all aspects of it, and today is no different. We're going to be talking about something unique, and that is business succession planning. We've been going through some of the nuances of estate planning and some of the things that many don't think about. They put it on the shelf and they think it's more of a general concept of it. So that we thought that this would be a really interesting topic for those individuals. They may be sole proprietors, they may have larger companies, and I think it all matters. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But keep in mind, this is an opportunity for you to submit questions. You can do that in the Q&A section right now. We have some questions we'll go through here as we get close to the end of today's virtual town hall. But if you have a question, submit it and we'll do our best to get to it in the Q&A section of the Zoom area. So do that. You can also go to the website at TuckerAllen.com. You can submit questions at TuckerAllen.com/questions, and we'll get to those in next month's town hall if you prefer that. And you can always tune in, but always remember you have to register to log in and or log online to get your questions answered. So look forward to next month's town hall as well. But also on Fridays, if you haven't yet checked it out, for about 15 minutes every Friday at 1 o'clock Central Time, we do Facebook or TuckerAllen Live on Facebook. Very quick segment, real quick. You can also ask questions in the comment section. Love to see you then. We do it every Friday for about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's a good spot issue. We go through some of the things that can just take a few minutes to give you some highlights and some tips, but always keep in mind that this, as well as your Facebook Live, it can't be legal advice. It's more educational, informational. We really would need you to come in, have a consultation, sit down with the specific facts that are surrounding your circumstances, and then you could get the best legal advice with regards to your estate planning. I also watch for the college packet that's coming up over the summer months for college age kids. Something, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to want to go and watch the last Facebook Live that we talked about. It's a very important part for kids. It's one of the things that many overlook in terms of powers of attorney and healthcare and all those things that you may not be taking advantage of when your child is now an adult or legal age at 18. And you'll be surprised when you go try to transact in a bank or get information that they're an adult. And you may still be the parent and you may be paying the way, but you won't get that information without the college packet. It's going to be ridiculously priced. It's ridiculously important. So check it out. We'll be all over social media with regards to that as well. So give us a call at 866-335-3375, and you can schedule that consultation, or you can do it right online in any of our offices without picking up the phone. You can go to TuckerAllen.com, hit schedule consultation. They'll be provided with some dates and opportunities to come in. You can do it via phone, Zoom, or in person where appropriate, where you feel most safe. So let's quickly get to our panel, and then we're going to take a very, very brief break, and we'll be back. But first, let's introduce Kevin up in the Kansas City metro area. Welcome back, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm happy to be here today.
And also joined again here with our virtual town hall in the St. Louis, Kirkwood area. We're welcome Jim Gao. Welcome back.
Thanks, Scott. It's always a pleasure.
All right, so we're going to get right to it in the business succession planning and what we do and how do we define it and all the things that matter most. But we're going to do a real quick break, and we'll be right back here in about 45 seconds.
We had a lot of conversations on what would happen if we weren't here, and I don't know. TuckerAllen was super convenient. It was so easy to go through and get the package that we needed.
The website was simple, easy to use. You could schedule a time to actually meet with somebody.
It's one set fee for a will, one set fee for a trust.
It's our wishes in place. It's everything we want for our daughter.
All right, welcome back. Let's get right to it so that we can get to some of the questions that are submitted. And remember, you can submit them in the Q&A section if you want. I've got some questions now, and we'll be happy to answer them. And obviously, it doesn't need to be right on this topic as well. It can be on any topic, and we'll try to get to those today. If not, you can go to TuckerAllen.com/questions and submit those, and we'll get to those in a future town hall or on our Facebook Live when we have an opportunity. So, all right, business owners, you know, it's one of those things, again, that is very special needs in terms of an understanding of what it is and what you should do with it. And you overlook it. You think, oh, I'm just going to get my will and trust on it and it's all taken care of. But what you have to focus on really is what happens to your business after that. You know, where does it go? And Jim, I think, we want to keep that in mind. And specifically, it can be, when we say business, the first thing I think about is, big business, but it doesn't necessarily, it can be a sole proprietorship, or it can be an LLC or a PC or whatever it may be. And I guess that's the first stopping point or starting point, really, Jim, is do you have to determine what exactly you have, what kind of business it is?
Oh, exactly. Just with any other type of asset, you've got to know, for example, a bank account, is it a stock and, investment account? Is it a brokerage, money market, checking, retirement, 401k, IRA? Same thing goes with businesses. So the most popular business entity nowadays is the LLC. So if you've got an LLC, usually you can tell by an operating agreement if that's your governing document. Now, if you don't have an operating agreement, that's an issue. And a lot of businesses don't, especially small ones. So they just go online, file their articles of incorporation, articles of organization, actually, and they don't go and get the operating agreement. But yeah, knowing what type of business is important, because then we know how we can transfer or designate beneficiaries on those interests.
Yeah, I mean, it matters about what documents you need to prepare. And we've always said this in our virtual town halls and even on Facebook or TuckerAllen Live on Fridays. And that is, one of the unique things is that we want to work together with individuals, certified financial planners. We want to put that team together because it's important. They may already be working with you in your business to ensure that the assets and the income and the investments are taken care of. But identifying it, I always think of stock. Been doing this a long time. There used to be paper stock, and that matters too, right? In terms of what you may need to do.
Absolutely. So if you've got an LLC, normally what we're dealing with as ownership interest is what's called a membership interest. And those are normally uncertificated. You don't have a stock certificate most of the time with an LLC. It can be, but 99% of the time it's not. And for that, we just do a simple assignment. It's a one-page assignment of membership interest. And then we update. Normally there's a chart of members and percentage interests at the end of the operating agreement. If it's a corporation, and not an S corporation, which a lot of times is confusing for people, because you can have an LLC that actually is an S corporation. It's a tax designation, not a type of company. So, but if you've got a corporation, you're going to have stock certificates, and we'll have to transfer those or name a beneficiary on those. You've got to cancel them and reissue new ones in the name that you want them in.
And I mean, maybe, again, it's more thinking big picture. What do you want to do? You may have employees. You may have a lawn care service, but you have a couple employees and you want to make sure that it's an ongoing enterprise, or you want to hand it off to your kids, or you want to hand it off to a cousin or a niece or a nephew or whatever it may be. But as you're talking about identifying it, it's a matter of taking stock or inventory. All right, do I have an operating agreement? Do I have a stock certificate? And that helps you at least loosely identify what it is. There's always a reporting requirement in the state of Missouri, an annual report to the Secretary of State. So any of those give you an indication of what you got?
Absolutely. So if you're filing those annual reports, LLCs don't require those, which is why it's such a popular business entity. But if you're filing an annual report, you have a corporation, you have an Inc., not an LLC. And that's important to know. It's a dead giveaway. But the funny thing is, with those annual reports, people don't realize they should be doing internal things like annual meetings and keeping minutes. That I can tell you from experience, 85% of corporations, especially small ones, don't have a proper corporate book that they keep up, and that it needs to be caught up if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. Those are the one items. I mean, a lot of the things you would just overlook, keeping the minutes, it's so equally important. But Kevin, we talk about the gathering of the documents, and I guess I want to know, why is it so important? Someone's listening, they're watching, they're thinking, okay, I'm going to go pull what I have. What is that? How does that guide them? How does it help them at least before they're coming to see you?
Sure. So before like Jim or I would want to do anything drafting an estate plan wise, we want to know what, we want to see the documents, because we want to know exactly what type of company or corporation. We want to know what this entity is exactly before we get going. And it's not that maybe we don't trust what people are telling us, but sometimes we want to see it with our own eyes as well, just to verify that everyone's on the same page here. So, and then the other thing is that we want to make sure that as we're drafting this estate plan, that our estate plan is working in unison with whatever your business plan is. Maybe you already have some sort of succession planning kind of set up between you and your partners. If it's, you know, a corporation that has multiple partners, we want to make sure that what we're doing is working with that, and that we're not over here kind of, you know, in left field, maybe doing our own thing while the business plan is already in place and it's saying another thing. So that's kind of a big reason why we want to do it. And then another reason that we want to do it is we want to see how we are evaluating the worth of this business. And sometimes, you know, and like what Jim was talking about earlier, maybe this operating agreement or maybe the bylaws or whatever it is, there's something there that might tell us how we determine the worth of the business, because it's important to us to know, hey, is this a business that's worth $500,000, or maybe is this a business that's worth $20 million? Because that's going to affect how we go about our planning. And, you know, it's a good way for us to be able to say, hey, are we getting the business worth? Are we getting it because all the partners come together and they look at the books and they say, this is our revenue, this is what we think it's worth? It's more like an arbitrary number maybe that the partners all agree on. Or is this something to where, hey, we need to get a CPA involved to get a certified appraisal for this before we can keep going? So those are just kind of some of the issues that we would run into and things we would want to look at before we got going. And then just like what Jim had kind of talked about, you know, the other reason I want to see these documents is, even though this might not be particularly relating to the estate plan, we still want to make sure that you're having your annual meetings, that you're staying caught up on all of that stuff. Because, you know, Jim and I talked about this earlier, right? Like, people are creating these companies, these corporations, for the protection that they provide. But if you're not kind of following up on your end and making sure that you're doing things as they need to be done with the meetings and the minutes and so forth, then, hey, you're not running your company like it should be. And then you have like the whole piercing of the corporate veil potential issues, or something like that.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, I'm going to talk about the legacy protection program, and I always can't let that go by, because if we talk about it, I'm going to talk about it in a minute, about how important it is to annually review, or, you know, what's going on. And for many out there, they may have a partner, they may have somebody who's an equal shareholder, maybe they're a minority interest, and that shareholder agreement may already dictate what's to happen. But you have to plan forward of what's to happen with that money. Maybe there's a buyout, maybe there's something. So I imagine reviewing the operating agreement is important, as well as any bylaws or shareholder agreements or purchase agreements or exit agreements or whatever it may be, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. There's all sorts of different ways that people can kind of go about that business succession planning, especially whenever you were saying they have a partner of some sort. Maybe they have life insurance on their partner has life insurance on them to make sure we have the money, or we have cross buyout agreements. Like you were saying, there's lots of different options there for how those things are being done. And as Jim and I are creating an estate plan for you, we want to make sure that we're not unintentionally running amok of whatever your business plan is, because, you know, you already have a plan with your partner. You have the life insurance policy on them, so then you can make the buyout if needs be. Or maybe your wife has a life insurance policy on you, so then she could pay for a portion of the company if needs be. Whatever issue or way that has already been determined in these operating agreements or the bylaws, we just want to make sure we're not doing something that is going against what those are.
You know, we think, or at least I do, I equate estate planning, wills, trust with death. And I think the thing that we've always tried to remind everyone, that the positive takeaway from COVID is that it's, you know, this isn't just for those who are over 50 or over 60. You know, incapacity can happen at any time, and that is the, gosh, you know, the pan in the face moment of COVID, is that it affects young, middle, and old. And so, Jim, I guess that's the question: is we've talked about the documents, these kind of operating agreements, the shareholder, agreements, the bylaws, I imagine you'd want to review those, and someone watching, maybe, they may be young and thinking, oh, I've got a will, I don't need to worry about it. But what happens if an owner or shareholder, becomes incapacitated? I mean, you can talk about passing away, but what if they become incapacitated? And this is the importance, I imagine, of planning in an estate planning, right?
Right, exactly. So that's the question. So in people don't think about it, if it's especially if it's a sole member LLC, that sole member becomes incapacitated. Well, is the business then just going to shut down and family members have to step up and wind it down or sell it? Or do you have a key employee that you want to step up and take the role of president or CEO or managing member? And so those are important. And if it's not a sole member and it's a multi-member, then do the other partners buy out this incapacitated member that can no longer do the meaningful activities of the business? Or is it a passive business that it doesn't matter if there's incapacity? So these are all questions that need to be addressed, whether it be in an operating agreement or for a corporation, a shareholder agreement. And it's, just agreement between all the members that says, if there's an incapacity, what do we do? And it's not just incapacity or death. It is bankruptcy, divorce, things that affect that member's membership interest or stockholders, shares that need to be addressed as well. And so that it's a restriction on transfer. You don't want, now we've got an ex-husband and an ex-wife or ex-partners that are, bickering all the time at the board meetings. And, you want to address that.
You raise a good point about even divorce, because I'll liken it to a prenuptial agreement or an antenuptial agreement. I mean, the point is that many people go through that not expecting the worst case scenario, perhaps, of a divorce, but they work their lives to build something. Let's just say it's their second marriage, and they've coming into the marriage with a very well established business, or any business, it doesn't matter. And this, I guess the point of this is just planning. What do you want to happen? You have some choices. So let's dictate, if this, then that. I imagine that is really what we're talking about.
It is. Yeah. It's in the, if this is almost as important as the then that, because you have to think of scenarios you normally wouldn't think of, which is why estate planning and business succession attorneys are so important, because we've seen it. We know what's going to happen. What about if one of the members just goes to try and sell their shares? Well, we want to restrict that, because you don't want to be partners with a stranger. Or, what if one business owner wants out? Well, do they offer the shares first to the company, first to the other members? And at what price? How do we pay for it? All those things are part of the agreements. Yeah.
I mean, I think when we think about this, and I mentioned earlier, Kevin, the legacy protection program that we've always mentioned on Facebook Live, on our virtual town halls. And I do it because it's, as I listen to the two of you speak about it, and it always comes full circle of, you may have individuals now watching, that is that they already have their estate done. They're just curious what this whole topic is about, and they may have an interest in a business, or they may have, or maybe they're, whatever, is a lawyer, a doctor, a plumber, it doesn't matter. They may have something, an interest in a business. And I guess they may be thinking, oh no, my lawyer 20 years ago took care of that, but the business wasn't in existence. So this legacy protection program, and I want to weave this in to talking about reviewing your estate plan. You may have one. It's time to review it. If you've got a business, let us look at it. So this legacy protection program, for those that are unaware, and then I'll let you comment, Kevin, and that is, it annually allows the attorneys to review your plan to make sure it's up to date, that it meets your needs. That, do you have more children? Did you have a change in spouse? Did you have a change in business assets or regular assets? Did you dispose of something? Did you acquire something? We all, we live in this society where we're always doing something, buying something, and we forget to maybe title it appropriately, or it's not, maybe you want it to go somewhere. But that's what this legacy protection program, I'll let you comment on that, and then I have a question about it for you. So.
Sure, absolutely. No, that's exactly as you were saying, right? You can't get, like what you're saying, an estate plan done that was 20 years ago. Things change, circumstances change. you kind of listed a lot of the potential things there. And, you know, what if a beneficiary has passed away, right? Because sometimes I'll be talking to people and they're like, oh, it's no worries, like everything's TOD, right? I don't want to trust, or everything's TOD. I have a small probate, you know, a small estate probate, whatever it is. But sometimes it's just, you know, you have to stay so on top of these things to make sure that because like you said, circumstances change. You want to have somebody there to look at it with you, to be able to ask you some questions, because Jim might read something and say, hey, I'm not 100% sure what this is even trying to get at here. Can you, you know, let's figure this out, because there might be a better way to do this. Or like you had said, there's kind of some major things, like, did somebody die? Was somebody born? Was there a divorce? Is someone now on like a government-based or government benefits program? You know, we wouldn't want them to get a whole bunch of assets and get them kicked off of the program. So those are just all kind of things. Those are kind of some big things that people need to think about that they just don't. And if you don't review your estate plan, there's a pretty decent likelihood that, you know, you'll make a mistake. Or like the Secure Act in 2020, right? That kind of came out of nowhere a little bit, and a lot of people had to get some stuff changed and review things. And if you're not doing that every year, right, I'm sure there's tons of people out there right now that their trusts are not, you know, they aren't following what the Secure Act has now set up for us. So those are just all things that if somebody like Jim or I looks at it, we can kind of come back to you and say, hey, you might want a Secure Act amendment, or hey, did so-and-so pass away or get divorced, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. It's a couple $100 annually, but it includes beneficiary changes, trustee changes. It's included, a review's included, one change. I think that's the point, is for a small annually, it's just, you get all these benefits, making sure that if, for example, Secure Act, we know what's coming down, we assume is a change in the estate plan, the death tax. What is that threshold? We know that's probably coming from the Biden administration. And we have all these estate plans that may now all of a sudden be upside down, and they may no longer be at the level they thought that they were safe with and have to pay taxes. And that's why this legacy protection program is important. And if you don't have to necessarily previously be a TuckerAllen client, you can call, look it up. You can join the program, and now you're covered annually. It's just it's like having an oil change, right? You get an oil change, you just get it taken care of. And while you're there, they're checking the fluid, they're checking the brakes, they're checking the tires. And that's just part of the program. They're like, yeah, it's all good. See you, you're on your way. See you next year. That's kind of the theory. So, but you know, back to the point, Kevin, I guess when you're reviewing the estate, there may be people watching, I've got it done. I would imagine you think it's important for them to come in, bring in the documents. Hey, check it and just let me look and see what's going on with the company. What's it worth? You know, is it consistent with what you had originally planned? I imagine that's something you would suggest for people to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And anytime that there's a business involved, I definitely want to be seeing the documents, you know, the incorporation article, whatever it could be, the LLC, the membership interest. We're going to want to see all that, you know, like we have said, we want to look at all that. We want to make sure that what we're doing is lined up exactly with the business plan that's already in place, because we don't want to be creating something that is going against that, or is going to create some sort of turmoil to then where it's like, okay, well, which plan are we following here?
Right.
We don't want to have any of those questions. So the best way to do that is to allow somebody to look at it who's going to be drafting your estate plan. Let us make sure that what we're doing is in line with what's already out there.
Yeah, financial planners do it all the time. You know, they're always asking, hey, let's reevaluate your long-term goals. 15 years ago, you may have been in a high-risk goal. You know, I'm good. I'm willing to risk a lot. Now that I'm, you know, in my 50s, I'm getting close to retirement, in my 60s. Maybe I need to reevaluate. I need to put some things, you know, it's the same thing with your estate plan. You may have, whether it's assets and businesses. And Jim, taking those, one word of caution is you need to make sure, I imagine, that the business agreements, the business plans, the shareholder agreements, the bylaws are all consistent with what your plan says, your estate says, because what happens if there's a discrepancy between the two? What controls?
It's going to be the business documents that control, because those are directly, you know, governing the business interests. And that's what all the shareholders agreed to. And that's what's going to happen. Your estate plan's outside. I mean, think of it this way. why would one shareholder be able to unilaterally override the business agreement that happened between all the members? It's just not possible. And so, yeah, the business agreements are going to be the ones that rule and govern at the time of one of these events. And so if you think, oh, well, my kids will just step in and take over my position in the business, but the operating agreement says absolutely not, it's going to be bought out by the other three and you just get some cash and go on your way. Well, that's two very different things that a family business person, they want it to continue on in their family, and that might not be what happens.
And I think we mentioned, I do it all the time with, financial planners, and that is working in concert with them, because even upon death, whether things are liquidated, where's the money going to go, put into an account. And I think that's why you bring a team together. I always try to find an example. Let's just say I go to my general practitioner and I wind up having cancer. Well, you're going to work together with an oncologist, and you're going to go back, and it's a team of people who all bring something together. And I know you guys work with CFPs a lot, and it's kind of cross collaborate.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So get any questions you have. You can submit them in the Q&A section. We have a few now, and I just want to get both Kevin and Jim some of your thoughts. You guys can each chime in, whatever you think. But the first question is, do my personal estate plans need to include my business succession plans? And the question says, I own a small company. I'm wondering if these should be one and the same, or if they can remain separate, or I will see any repercussions from separating the documents. And I know we've talked a little bit about it, but that's a pretty pointed question. So whoever wants to take it, go with it. You both can chime in.
Oh, yeah. I guess I'll hop in real quick here. Yeah, we want to keep the last half of that question there, where it's saying, like, should these be separate documents? Yeah, yes, they should be separate documents. Your business plan is a separate plan from your estate plan, but yeah, we want them to work in concert with each other. Was what I was going to say. Jim might want to expand on part of this.
Yeah, well, and it comes down to the fact it really is separating business assets and personal assets and intentions. And so, you need to know, okay, the business plan says that the shares just simply pass to my estate. Okay, well, then it's a continuing family business and my family members can take my position. If it says my shares get bought out at death, or my interest gets bought out at death, well, now you're planning for cash in your estate plan. And so that is a completely different, animal than continuing a business and inheriting responsibility rather than money. And, depending on the business valuation and how it's coming in, we may be dealing with estate tax problems, because, a business that started at zero and at death potentially is worth $10-15 million. Well, you're above the individual estate tax exemption at that point. And we don't know where the step up in basis is gonna go nowadays with Biden's plan.
Yeah, I mean, that can very rapidly change everything and every plan that's out there, depending upon how low they go and what they eradicate with a stepped up basis. And obviously that's why they're doing it. There's a big money grab out there, if they lower that threshold. So it's a good point. So the next question is there a best approach to funding my plan for succession? I want to take the best approach for my taxes and my heirs' taxes when they take on my company, but am at a loss as to what the best plan ahead is nowadays. Jim, Kevin, anything?
That we kind of just touched on that. We don't necessarily know either whether or not we're going to get a step up or not at death. And for people that don't know, a step up just very basically is, let's say I started a business for $50 filing fee. My basis in that business is $50. When I go to sell the business at 10 million, I have a capital gain on that interest. And normally at death, that would be stepped up for the heirs to the 10 million, and they can sell it for 10 million and $1 and have $1 in capital gains. We don't know if that's going to go away. As far as funding, buy-sell agreements and shareholder agreements and succession, it really just depends on your personal situation and the type of business and how much we're talking. A life insurance is a great tool for this. We don't sell life insurance, but it is a great tool, which is why we work so closely with financial planners and CFPs, because it can be either the company owns a policy on all the members, or like Kevin, I think mentioned it briefly, the members could own cross-sell life insurances on each other. And so, yeah, that's one, a couple ways to fund it, but life insurance is a great tool, especially if the if the business doesn't have a lot of flow through capital, or promissory notes can be used to kind of pay off the shares over time.
Would, like, for this person's question, it would matter too, maybe what they're, from the question, we can't really, this would be somebody I would have a lot more questions for, but one of them would be like, hey, who are you wanting to, because they're saying, sorry, I'm reading it right here next to me. So they want them to take on the company, but are they wanting all of their children to take on the company in equal parts? Is there maybe one child who right now is acting as the VP, who's kind of the right hand person for the owner of the company? Are we wanting them to take on more of it? And then it's like, we have to do some more planning there, because we have to kind of know what's the business worth. Or are we wanting to keep things even for all the children and what they're inheriting? So it's just, and like Jim had just talked about, what if there is cross agreement between, if there's more than one partner for this, and there's a buy-sell agreement, where maybe the partner could come in and buy, you're planning on giving it to your child, but there's actually this business plan where it's saying, hey, my partner has first right of refusal here to buy my portion of the business. You're thinking you're leaving your child this great asset, but really what's happening is that your business partner is going to buy them out, and they're just going to end up with cash. So it's, I'd have a lot more questions, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. All right, last question that is submitted is, how should I deal with disagreements during my succession deal and my co-owner wants out? What all is at risk for me, and what should my strategy be for this dilemma?
That is a very follow-up worthy question. So yeah, it really, it depends on the disagreement,
right?
As far as between the co-owners, it depends on what the documents actually say. They may address disagreements. A lot of the times there's what's called a Russian roulette provision in agreements that deal exactly with this, where one owner wants out, and they basically have a bidding war with each other until one just stops.
Yeah.
And so it really depends, and that's going to need more facts, I think, really to properly be answered.
It's a great question to support the whole point of today's virtual town hall, and that is disagreements. Imagine you're not expecting to have disagreements or issues with regards to succession, but it is life, right? And so why not go ahead and plan for that in your estate? Why not, don't ignore it, because these are the things that happen. Things change, ownership changes, ratios change, income changes. There's just so much. And ignoring that, I think that's the whole point of today. No matter what size your business is, what you do, have a conversation. And so thanks for joining, guys. I appreciate your input on the town hall today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that's the point. It's the best hour you'll spend is just having a consultation with Kevin or with Jim, and just going through what are your options. I think that's the key here, is understand what you should and what you can do, and preparing for what may happen. And we've done it. You may have already taken the steps and developed a plan, and that's the opportunity to have it reviewed and take a look and talk and ask about the legacy protection program that Jim and Kevin and TuckerAllen offer. It's something unique, an annual just maintenance program to make sure everything that you've worked for, everything you invested in, is protected in the way that you want it to be. And with presidential changes, administration changes, you got to make sure. And the Secure Act, that's something that radically changed, and those who just left their estate plan on the shelf aren't protected. So that's why that legacy protection program, or just having a consultation, is so key. Bring in the documents, bring in the business documents, and then we'll take a look at it and give you the best advice that's possible. So tune in again for next month, the virtual town hall. We're going to register and ask questions. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question today, you can do that at tuckerallen.com/questions, or you can log on Friday. You can, every Friday, 1 o'clock, just go to Facebook, TuckerAllen's Facebook page. You can log in, ask questions during that 10 to 15 minutes, and you'll get answers right there. And so we look forward to doing that and making sure you follow us across social media as well. So check us out at tuckerallen.com, and we'll see you this Friday at 1 o'clock, and then we'll see you again next month in July for our next town hall. Until then, have a great week.